I'm Lily, 24 years old. I've always found solace in driving, the open road stretching out before me like a canvas waiting to be painted with memories. Tonight, however, the canvas seemed darker than usual, the rain painting streaks across the windshield as I navigated the winding roads. As I rounded a bend, a sense of unease crept over me, the rain falling harder now, obscuring my view of the road ahead. I glanced down at the fuel gauge, my heart sinking as I realized I was running dangerously low on gas. I tried to push away the knot of anxiety tightening in my chest, but it lingered, a persistent reminder of my vulnerability. And then, with a sputter and a groan, my car came to an abrupt halt, the engine dying with a final pitiful wheeze. Panic surged through me as I tried in vain to restart the engine, the only response a deafening silence. I cursed under my breath, my mind racing with possibilities. Should I wait for another car to pass by? Or should I venture out into the darkness in search of help? Before I could make a decision, headlights appeared in the distance, casting a warm glow in the darkness. Relief flooded through me as the car pulled up behind mine, the sound of rain pounding on the roof drowned out by the thrum of my racing heart. As the figure approached, I could see that it was a man, his features obscured by the shadows. With a shaky breath, I stepped out into the rain, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hi, I'm Sarah," I called out, my voice trembling with relief. "My car broke down, and I don't have my phone. Can you help me?" The man's response was a slow, deliberate step forward, his movement sending a shiver down my spine. Something about him felt off, his presence sending alarm bells ringing in my mind. "Of course I can help," the man said, his voice smooth and reassuring. "Why don't you come with me? I'll give you a lift to the nearest town." I hesitated, a sense of unease knotting in the pit of my stomach. But the allure of safety was too strong to resist, and I found myself nodding in agreement. As I moved to follow the man to his car, a sudden sense of dread washed over me, chilling me to the bone. Just as I was about to climb into the passenger seat, instinct kicked in, and I lashed out, pushing the man away with all my strength. With a startled cry, I stumbled back, my heart pounding in my chest as I realized the truth. This man wasn't here to help me. He was here for something far more sinister. Before he could react, I turned and fled into the darkness, the rain soaking me to the bone as I ran for my life. Behind me, I could hear the sound of footsteps, growing louder and closer with each passing moment. Panic fueled my movements as I darted off the road and into the dense thicket of trees that lined the roadside. Branches clawed at my skin, leaving angry welts in their wake as I fought to put as much distance between myself and my pursuer as possible. For what felt like an eternity, I ran, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I stumbled through the darkness. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat, every rustle of leaves sending my heart racing with fear. But still, I pressed on, driven by the primal instinct to survive. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the sound of footsteps faded into the distance, leaving me alone in the darkness once more. Trembling with exhaustion and fear, I collapsed to my knees, my body racked with sobs as I struggled to catch my breath. But even as I huddled there in the darkness, I knew that I couldn't stay hidden forever. With a trembling hand, I reached into my pocket, my fingers closing around the cold metal of my car keys. Gathering my courage, I forced myself to my feet and began to make my way back to the road. The rain had slowed to a gentle drizzle as I emerged from the trees, my eyes scanning the empty road for any sign of danger. With each step, my heart pounded in my chest, the fear of what I might find lurking in the darkness threatening to overwhelm me. But to my relief, the road appeared deserted, the only sound the soft patter of rain on the pavement. Summoning all of my courage, I made my way back to my car, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. With a prayer on my lips, I turned the ignition, holding my breath as the engine roared to life. Relief flooded through me as I pulled onto the road, my headlights cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope. But even as I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching me from the shadows, a lingering reminder of the danger that lurked just out of sight. It wasn't until I reached the outskirts of town that I allowed myself to breathe a sigh of relief, the glow of streetlights casting a warm, welcoming glow on the deserted streets. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. As I waited for the police to arrive, I couldn't help but reflect on the events of the night. In the darkness, I had faced my deepest fears and emerged stronger for it. And though the memory of that sinister figure would haunt my dreams for years to come, I knew that I would never again underestimate the power of the night. Please do consider subscribing to the channel and hit the like button before I start the next story. I'm Alex, a 26-year-old guy who's always had a passion for driving. There's something about the open road that speaks to me, the freedom of endless possibilities stretching out before me with every mile. But tonight, as I find myself on a desolate road in the dead of night, that sense of freedom feels like a distant memory. The darkness stretches on endlessly, swallowing the narrow beam of my headlights as I navigate the winding roads. I've been driving for what feels like an eternity, the monotony broken only by the rhythmic hum of the engine and the occasional flicker of passing scenery. With each passing mile, a sense of unease creeps over me. I haven't seen a gas station or a single sign of civilization for hours, and the gnawing thirst in my throat grows more unbearable with each passing minute. I know I need water, but the empty road offers no respite. I glance down at the fuel gauge, my heart sinking as I realize I'm running dangerously low on gas. Panic begins to bubble up inside me, threatening to consume me whole. I should have stopped at the last town, filled up the tank and stocked up on supplies. But now it's too late. I try to push away the knot of anxiety tightening in my chest, but it lingers, a persistent reminder of my vulnerability. And then, with a sputter and a groan, my car comes to an abrupt halt, the engine dying with a final pitiful wheeze. I curse under my breath, my hands shaking as I try in vain to restart the engine. But the only response is a deafening silence. I'm stranded in the middle of nowhere, with no one to turn to for help. Desperation claws at my throat as I glance out into the darkness, searching for any sign of life. And then, just when all hope seems lost, I see it, a flicker of light in the distance. Hope surges within me as I approach, my mind racing with visions of a roadside shop or a welcoming home. But as I draw closer, doubt creeps in. What if it's a trick? What if it's something sinister lurking in the darkness? Despite my apprehension, I can't ignore the pull of desperation. With a heavy heart, I pull over to the side of the road and step out into the rain-soaked night. The light grows brighter with each step, illuminating a small clearing just off the road. But as I emerge into the clearing, my heart freezes in my chest. Before me stand 7 cloaked figures, their faces hidden beneath hooded jackets. In the center of their circle lies a gruesome sight, the torn and mangled remains of animals, their blood staining the earth beneath them. Shock and disbelief wash over me as I realize the true nature of the scene before me. This isn't a shop or a home. It's something far more sinister. I glance back at my car, my heart racing with fear. And then, as if on cue, the figures turn as one, their eyes locking onto mine with a chilling intensity. Panic surges within me as I turn to flee, but it's too late. I've been caught in their trap. With a cry of alarm, I sprint back to my car, my heart pounding in my chest as I fumble for the keys. But as I turn the ignition, dread floods through me as the engine sputters and dies, leaving me stranded in the darkness. In the blink of an eye, the figures are upon me, their movements swift and relentless. With a sickening thud, I feel the air rush from my lungs as one of them slashed the tire of backside. With trembling hands, I turn the key once more, praying for the engine to roar to life. And this time, by some miracle, it does. The sound filling the air like a symphony of hope. But even as I speed away into the darkness, the memory of those hooded figures lingers in my mind, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurk just beyond the edge of the road. As I drive, I can't shake the feeling of eyes watching me from the shadows, a lingering reminder of the danger that still surrounds me. But I push forward, determined to put as much distance between myself and that nightmare as possible. And then, just when I feel like all hope is lost, I see it, the glow of neon lights in the distance. With a surge of relief, I realize that it's a gas station, a beacon of hope in the darkness. With trembling hands, I pull into the station, got the tire replaced, my heart pounding in my chest as I fill up the tank and stock up on supplies. As I drive away, the darkness fades behind me, replaced by the warm glow of civilization. As I continue on my journey, I can't help but reflect on the events of the night. In the darkness, I faced my deepest fears and emerged stronger for it. And though the memory of that encounter will haunt my dreams for years to come, I know that I'll never forget the overwhelming sense of gratitude for the chance to escape with my life. As the cool night air whispered through the cracked window, I glanced over at my partner, Dia, who sat beside me in the driver's seat. Her eyes reflected the soft glow of the dashboard lights, and a faint smile played on her lips as she hummed along to the radio. "Enjoying the drive, babe?" I asked, breaking the comfortable silence that had settled between us. She nodded, her gaze flicking briefly to meet mine. "Absolutely. There's something so peaceful about being out on the road at night." I couldn't agree more. Ever since we met, Dia and I had shared a love for late-night drives, the freedom of the open road stretching out before us like an endless promise. But tonight, as we navigated the winding back roads that wound through the countryside, a sense of unease settled over me. The darkness seemed thicker, more oppressive somehow, and the usual sense of serenity was replaced by an undercurrent of tension. I brushed off the feeling as we continued on our journey, the headlights cutting through the night like a knife. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of something strange. At first I thought it was just a trick of the light, a shadow playing tricks on my mind. But as we drove on, I saw them again, figures standing motionless on the side of the road, their silhouettes illuminated by the pale glow of the moon. I frowned, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice tinged with apprehension. Dia glanced in the direction I was pointing, her brow furrowing in confusion. "See what?" I shook my head, my heart pounding in my chest. Never mind, must have been my imagination. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. Something was wrong, and I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over me like a shroud. As we continued on our journey, the sightings became more frequent, the figures appearing and disappearing like phantoms in the night. Each time we passed them, a chill ran down my spine, and I couldn't help but feel like we were being watched. But as the minutes turned into hours, I pushed the thoughts to the back of my mind, focusing instead on the road ahead. It wasn't until we heard the sharp hiss of air escaping from one of the tires that I realized something was seriously wrong. I cursed under my breath as I brought the car to a stop, the sound of gravel crunching beneath the tires echoing in the silence of the night. I climbed out of the car, my heart sinking as I saw the flat tire. "Damn it," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. "Looks like we ran over something." Dia joined me at the side of the road, her brow furrowed in concern. "What are we going to do?" I glanced around, my eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of help. But all I saw was the empty road stretching out before us, the shadows swallowing us whole. And then, as if out of nowhere, the figures appeared once again, their forms emerging from the darkness like specters. My blood ran cold as I realized they were the same figures we had seen earlier, the ones standing on the side of the road. But this time, there was something different about them, something sinister lurking beneath the surface. Before I could react, they were upon us, their hands reaching out to grab us, to pull us into the darkness. I shouted for Dia to run as I fought against the onslaught, but it was no use. We were outnumbered, outmatched. In a last-ditch effort to escape, I reached for my phone and dialed 911, praying for help to arrive before it was too late. But as I spoke to the dispatcher, I knew deep down that our fate was sealed. And then, just when all hope seemed lost, I remembered the gun tucked away in the glove compartment. With trembling hands, I retrieved it and fired a shot into the air, the sound echoing through the night like a thunderclap. The figures faltered, their grip loosening as they recoiled from the sound. And in that moment of hesitation, Dia and I seized our chance, scrambling back to the safety of the car. I slammed the door shut behind us, my heart pounding in my chest as I fumbled for the keys. With a prayer on my lips, I turned the ignition and gunned the engine, the car lurching forward as we sped away into the night. As we drove, the adrenaline coursing through my veins, I couldn't help but wonder what had just happened. Who were those figures, and why were they stalking us in the dead of night? But as the headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the road ahead, I knew one thing for certain. We had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death, and as long as we stayed together, we would make it out of this nightmare alive.